top BD rappers King Von and Lil Durk. Some of their ops are just as famous, even though they're not from the world of music, such as the care of 051 Melly, a notorious gunner who both Durk and Von feared as he was deemed as one of the dangerous gang members Chicago ever saw.
Free Durk and Von. Freedom though. I'd rather them dead than in jail. Them niggas idiots, bro.
Chicago got its nickname Chirac after all the gun violence and bloodshed that used to take place in the city in the past and still does to a large extent. 051 Melly was definitely a part of the reason why Chicago got that bloody nickname. This is the story of 051 Melly, aka Gravedigger, Chicago's deadliest shooter who studied his enemies closely. 051 Melly's real name is Yarmel Williams, and he was born in Chicago, more specifically on the south side of the city, a place known quite well for being a part of the territory under the 600 gang of the BDs. He attended John Baptiste Point DuSable High School in the Bronzeville locality of the south side of Chicago. Believe it or not, violence followed this high school from a very early age, and it even has a tradition of being one of the more violent public high schools in the country. Back in the 50s, a 16-year-old student was shot and killed by a group of female students. This incident is considered to be one of the earliest fatal shootings in a Chicago public school. Then in the 60s, 12 students were arrested after a gang-related shooting at school. Yarmel grew up with his mother, his brother Wu, and his sister Kinjia. They moved a bit through the city, but they ended up at Calumet Building. Over the years, DuSable gained a reputation for having issues with gang violence. There was multiple stabbings and shootings within the school's perimeter during the 80s as well. During his high school days, 051 Melly gained a reputation as a bully. The reason being, Melly comes from a very troubled family. His stepdad, Golden Jerome, is still serving time. His cousins, TYMB Courtney and TYMB Cordis, were both allegedly behind the hit that took Tuka's life away. Not to mention that Melly's uncle was a high-ranking member of the No Limit Crew, one of Chicago's deadliest gangs. But as it often goes, you have to earn the respect of your family and your fellow gang members by yourself. It helps when you got someone close to you that can vouch, but it doesn't make the real deal happen. Melly knew he had to do something himself about his status in the streets. 051 Melly started moving with the gangster disciples once he was forced to follow his dad. That happened after the unfortunate loss of his mother. However, there were rumors coming in from all sides that he may have switched to Mickey Cobra, a group that has historically beefed with the O-Block, 600, Lamron, and other BD-related gangs. That meant nothing short of Melly being a renegade. That he was. He also rapped for Young Money, a renegade squad that went their own way and even made their own rules. Trouble knocked on 051 Melly's door for the very first time when a guy in his gang took out 051 Zeko. All that was known about the incident was that there was someone from the THF that was responsible. It was Melly's chance to establish himself in the street. 2010 kicked off a wild beef between THF and Young Money, with 051 Melly taking out a member of the THF. However, that was not the end. Inthang, a 600 member, later took out yet another YM member. His victim was a dude who went by the name of 051 T Streets. At this point, 051 knew it was a war, and they wanted blood for blood. Melly and Kiddo, another 051 member, would go out to smoke 600 Shack. That happened at South Calumet Avenue on 2nd of February 2012. After the hit on 600 Shack, it was clear as day that 051 Melly cared very little about the block he represented. He was keeping his homies in check, and if he came for a fight, he'd deliver. To make him even more deadly, it was a known fact that Melly did research when scouting out for ops and finding their location. He was quite known for stalking anyone who dissed him or his crew on social media, and he knew exactly how they moved and which places they would visit on a regular basis. This is precisely the reason why Melly quickly became one of the most feared shotters Chi-Town ever bred. But this war between the 051 and the BDs was not quite done with. Yet another baller from the 051 got dropped, and this time it was around 14-year-old who went by the name of Fats. The loss of Fats came as a catalyst for Melly, who turned him into a ruthless street predator. In fact, the whole set changed their name to Fats World as a sign of respect to their fallen brother. 051 had a score to settle with the 600 block, and they did. The one who ended up on their crosshairs was L.A. Capone, a 600 rapper who showed a lot of potential and could have made it far in the rap game. His famous tracks play for keeps and round here keep on buzzing these days. On September 26, 2013, Capone found himself walking the wrong alley near 70th Street and Stony Island Avenue. He was about to enter his car when a vehicle pulled up and shots started going off. Even though he survived the initial impact, he passed away later in the hospital. There were two 051 members who got arrested in the hit on Capone. It was 051 Lil Mick and 051 Rockhead. Mick would go on to get a 60-year sentence for the shooting, and Rockhead got 45 as an accomplice. Revenge had to come, and soon it did. 600 was patiently waiting for their opportunity, and it came right after 051 rapper Lil Mark dropped a diss track calling out several 600 Block members. The track was a spin-off using the competition track from Lil Durk and calling it No Competition. Both alive and dead BDs were dissed on the track. The BDs hesitated very little. Just a few days after the track got dropped, Lil Mark got smoked at a bus station. He suffered a gunshot wound to his head after a van full of BD members ran up on him. It was rumored that King Von and T-Roy from O Block also got involved in the hit on Mark. This has got the O Block involved in the beef too. Even Lil Durk clowned Mark after he posted photos referring to the bus stop where he got murked as a real famous bus stop. As one would expect, Melly got around to see that video that circulated on social media. He seeked revenge from that very moment, and he had a strong urge for retaliation. OTF Newski, a close friend of Durk's, who was the person who would end up paying for that price for Durk's behavior. OTF Nunu and OTF Newski got gunned down just a few days after he got signed to Durk's OTF label. R.I.P. Nunu. Nunu had raw talent and was ahead of his time. Man, it hurts to think that he would have had done music. Melly didn't stop with Newski. He went after Durk's manager OTF Chino. Went through a similar situation. He too was sitting in a parked car when he got ran up by 051 Melly. Believe it or not, Melly would go on to social media to make fun of the tragic loss of the OTF members that suffered. He went on to say,
Chino Burger, that's what they said.
At this point of the beef, rumors started coming in that Lil Durk put a price on Melly's head. 051 Melly was involved either directly or through some of his gang members, and several hits of OTF members, and Durk was well aware. Durk had THF Raheem assassinate Melly and two of his homies in the middle of Eaglewood. Even though all three survived, this was a big warning for Melly. He caught several bullets and suffered a lot of injuries. 051 Ario, popular 051 member who would then get revenge on Raheem, but this meant a lot of trouble since Raheem had affiliations stretching outside of just THF. See, Raheem was FBG Duck's blood cousin and stepson of Bezu. We all know because of his connections with King Von. Bezu was a notorious shotter himself. Bezu and Melly had the type of respect for each other that you usually see take place between formidable opponents. They even had an Instagram session where they talked about the losses that both sides of their respective gangs suffered.
I swear to God, I'm gonna get one respect even though I don't like his Yo, little homie Shano, I didn't know him in the streets. He was the only person who was willing to bump me in that county for the whole 4 years I was known. I respect that little.
Don't get it twisted, Bezu wanted revenge for losing his family member. He was out hunting for Melly, and he caught him at a house party alongside of MUBU Crump, Melly's friend. Crump lost his life that day, but 051 Melly somehow made it out alive, surviving two shootings as basically two headshot wounds. Melly's reputation as an unkillable dude started getting more and more traction. It was truly believed that Melly's a demon in the streets, but with such a reputation came a lot of trouble, and Melly was caught slacking. It was only a matter of time before he'd get too comfortable, and it happened after one of his beefs went left. He went into an argument with a dude from Taekwon World who went by the name of 007 Nate over a game of dice. Melly shot up Nate's home address even though his baby mama and his kid were inside. Nate couldn't wait to get revenge and take out Melly. There was a home party not long after the incident in Nate's home. The party took place at a residence located in the 6100 block of South St. Lawrence Avenue. Even though Melly got warned by his homies from the FBG squad that trouble might occur, he still pulled up. That's what ultimately got him murked. Nate shot Melly several times in a house full of people at around 3 o'clock in the morning. Melly didn't make it out alive that night. He sustained multiple gunshot wounds and was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead. That's confirmed by the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Many wonder what it was that kept Melly pushing further on his op-seeking journey. Could have left his street life behind so many times, yet he just kept going. It's crazy like he chose to keep doing this. That's so sad to live such a pathetic life and people look at him like he wasn't just a psychopath. Hope things change for future generations. The story of 051 Melly is a tragic one, fueled by violence and a desire for respect in the streets. His reputation as one of Chicago's deadliest shooters was cemented by his ability to study his enemies closely and strike when they least expected it. However, his legacy serves as a cautionary tale of the devastating consequences of gang violence and the toll it takes on individuals, families, and communities.